Hello and welcome to tonight's live stream. My name is Micah. I'll be your host for this evening, and boy, do we have a show for you. We are going to be talking about RFK Legacy, a brand new film now streaming on the Angel Guild. And we're not just talking about the film, we are bringing on the director, Sean Stone, and producer, Oliver Stone, to chat about the film. This will be amazing, so please start putting your questions in the comments section below. Also, if you do not know anything about this new documentary to the Angel Guild, we're going to be showing a trailer. But this is a movie called RFK Legacy, and it dives deep into the story of the Kennedys. From John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert F. Kennedy to Robert's son, RFK Jr., who is now currently in the current administration. But to find out more about this amazing film, please go to angel.com/RFK Live. By going there, you can sign up for the Guild, watch it there. If you already are a member of the Guild, just download the Angel app on any place you can get apps, TVs, phones, computers, wherever, and you'll see it there. Go ahead, type it in the search bar, and you can find it really easy. Definitely worth your time. But before we bring in Sean and Oliver, let's go ahead and cut to the trailer.
Do you think there's the Kennedy curse?
In the summertime, there were 29 cousins on Cape Cod. Yeah, there were lots of fights and lots of affection.
I announce the appointment of Robert F. Kennedy as Attorney General.
You try to follow in his footsteps. You become an attorney.
Some of these big-time gangsters corrupt the very system under which we live.
And your father changed when?
After my uncle's death, my father was shattered.
His first call was to the CIA and said, "Did you guys kill my brother?"
And then Robert Kennedy announced he was going to run for president.
I run to seek new policies.
He was making alliances with small businessmen, with farmers, with Republicans.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there.
I want to ask you about your father's assassination.
Anybody who reads that report will understand that Sirhan could not have killed my father.
It's a dirty story.
I ran away from home and had no contact with my mother.
This time you have a drug addiction. How does that play out?
I wanted to be working with nature.
He was appalled at what he saw. This is how he became the leading environmental lawyer in the United States.
There's no right to pollute. The polluter pays. My views are constantly misrepresented.
It's terrible what they did to suppress Bobby's free speech.
He accepted his burden, and he did his duty.
We have to make an effort to get beyond these rather difficult times.
We have to stop trying to destroy each other.
What we need in the United States is not division.
We have to find that place of light, of empathy, of compassion. I don't know if there's a curse. We do what we're supposed to do. The outcome's in God's hands.
Now streaming exclusively on Angel.
Wow. Sean and Oliver Stone, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
I would love to just jump right into some questions, starting with a very broad question. But Oliver, you as a filmmaker, you're best known for tackling real-life subjects, the JFK, Vietnam Wars, American politics, stuff like this. What drew you to this documentary?
Well, it's I did the movie I worked on. It was JFK, and about his death. It wasn't about his life; it was about his death. And then I did 3 years ago. No, actually 6 years ago. We did in 2019. We did Kennedy. It was called.
Well, two titles. That's why it had. There was a film, and then there was a series, right? So Revisited, and Through the Looking.
Oh, that's it. And JFK Revisited. That was what it was called. Mm-hmm. And there were two. There was a 4-hour version, and there was a 2-hour version. We took it very seriously. We were doing the follow-up to the 30 years that had passed, and that what information we now knew that was different. And there, of course, We discussed all that in both versions. And you have to understand that this is a subject that deeply troubled me all my life, you know? It's not just about Jack Kennedy, it's about who's running our government. That's really what it's about. And when you get into that story, it's a much bigger story. And unfortunately, Jack may have been the first victim of it, but his brother, as you know, followed in his footsteps and eventually committed to run for office and almost made it. He would have been president, no question, in my opinion, because he was an attractive candidate. And he was shot under the most mysterious circumstances, like his brother. So how can you ignore that? And I've always wanted to follow up. I also wanted to follow up with Martin Luther King, which I worked a long time on a film about him, but that we're not able to finance it, nor were we able to finance, not that I went to the, put it this way, there was a reaction. We created quite a stir, and I think there was a reaction to the film, and you know, people were saying, "I don't want to, don't bring JFK to me, don't bring that up," because it's a sore subject for many people, and the contrary is true. I think it's important to talk about these things, and I tried to do it in an entertaining form of a feature film, but it didn't turn out that way. So I resorted to documentary, and this one is the best I can do for RFK. And I think it shows you the assassination, what happened at the end of it. It's very clear what happened, I think, to those people who are observant. But as you can see, it's linked to the other killing. But also the film has got another aspect, which is Sean's contribution, which is when he met RFK with me a few years ago, he saw the possibility of making a film about father-son and about the linkage and what the son had done. And we examined the son's legacy, which is quite extraordinary when you actually look at it and don't believe all the political hogwash you hear about it. You gotta really pay attention to what he's done with his life, and that's what the film does too.
I love that. And Sean, did you have a similar experience approaching this project? Of course, you're approaching it as the director, but were you also intrigued similarly to your father?
Yeah, I mean, my dad showed me, I think The Second Gun was the name of the documentary from years ago. There were only there's only like a handful on RFK, right? You think about how many films have been done on JFK. Obviously, JFK is a feature, but there's a lot of movies on JFK or kind of alluding to that assassination. There's a huge number of documentaries, probably thousands of books. And you compare that to RFK's assassination, it's not nearly as covered, I would say, as effusively, right, as a cultural phenomenon. JFK is a huge cultural phenomenon. RFK is a little bit in the shadow. And so I saw that documentary as a kid, I think it was The Second Gun, and then again, only a couple others. And I always felt that along the same lines, as JFK, I felt that there was a conspiracy. But what called me to want to tell the story was knowing RFK Jr., him running his run for office, right? Last 2024, he starts to run to become president, and I thought, well, what a great analogy, right? Of his own father tragically was cut down in that process of running for president, but here's his son now, picking up the reins, trying to do the same thing as far as getting the attention of a very polarized society as we are now, right? And 24 and 25, it's clear that America is polarized, very much what it was in 68, as the boomers, I'm sure, remember how polarized we were in that time. And we had political assassinations like MLK and Malcolm X and then RFK. So I felt like there was something about the time period that gelled with this moment. And it was worth looking at that father-son parallel of how this RFK Jr. is not some black sheep of the family. He's actually very much following in the footsteps of the uncle, JFK and RFK, because both of them were in many ways insiders who were questioning and challenging the same establishment that they were a part of.
Thank you for that. And something that you both mentioned that I absolutely dug my teeth into when watching the documentary was the whole father-son back and forth, the way you told the documentary. And that really goes to legacy. Something that I thought was really cool is a lot of the times when you hear legacy, you're thinking of an individual, as in like, oh, so-and-so's legacy. So my question is, Sean, what was the thought behind telling the story of RFK Legacy, but in like a familial sense, to where you're really going back and forth between RFK and RFK Jr.? What led you to that way of telling the story?
Yeah, the Godfather 2 of documentaries, right?
Yeah, that is great.
Documentaries that do that kind of pattern. As you know, storytelling evolves, and I learned it from watching my father work, and each story is a different. It kind of reveals itself, right? I mean, his film Alexander has a bit of that cutting across time, back and forth, of an older man back to his younger self. In this case, again, the story revealed itself through the editing process. I think we came with an intention, as I said, of recognizing, okay, there's something to this, son running for president, father running for president. In many ways, as we know, the death of, in this case, JFK's death traumatized RFK Sr., and RFK Sr.'s death traumatized his son and his family, right? So there's all these different parallels, and then we go back and forth through this story of seeing how RFK Sr. recovers from that and goes on to run for office, and RFK Jr. recovers from his father's tragedy and the drug addiction that follows, and he becomes a huge environmental lawyer, probably the most popular and perhaps the most successful environmental lawyer in America through the 90s. So again, it was these sort of parallels that we recognized through the course of the storytelling, and then when you see the parallels, you start to create a story accordingly, and that's how it comes together. Sometimes you have a script that's in hand and it works, and sometimes you just have to figure it out through the process of the storytelling and the editing.
No, I love that. And another thing that just drew me to this project as well is, of course, the narrative, the story is a father-son story, like you were saying earlier. But behind the scenes is a look of a father-son creation duo, which was really cool to kind of look into. And of course, Oliver, it goes without saying, Sean is your son. So this question is for you. But what does it mean to have Sean pursue his own pursuits, of course, as well as continue your legacy of telling stories? What does that mean to you?
Well, it means a lot because, I don't kid myself. I'm not a political figure, and it takes a lot of courage to go into the public arena and stay there. I think of all the storm of ugliness that has descended on Jack and Robert Sr., it's nothing compared to what the son has gone through, which is the ugliest I've ever seen. I've seen him accused now of everything by the Democratic Party, which he's supposed to be he is a scion of. He is one of the leading examples. I admired him when he was a lawyer. I know about, and I also I didn't testify, but I witnessed the case up in San Francisco with Monsanto when he went after glyphosate, and he got with other lawyers, he got the verdict he wanted, which was $100 million for DeWitt, for the witness who had cancer. But God Almighty, he has gone through hell with the Senate hearing alone, and what you see in the film, with these senators destroying him, trying to destroy him, and the way he keeps cool and keeps his calm befits the best of the Kennedys. And also, you got to keep in mind, a lot of that family has turned on him. Not all, but a lot of them are mean-spirited comments about him, all because they misunderstand what he said. And I think Robert defends himself so well when he says there's so much misunderstanding, so much propaganda against him in the newspapers and in the television that his position is never clear. When you see this film, you will understand his position much better.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. A lot of those scenes in the documentary in D.C. where he's being just berated by these congressmen and women, it was a bit irritating because, of course, you were led up to that point, and it's like, oh my goodness, he's so controlled with these people yelling at him, saying like they know his father better than he does. It's just
irritating.
It was
not
crazy.
Only that, Connolly attacks his parents. He says you're a disgrace to your parents. I mean, the guy's, it's just disgusting what this Connolly assumes.
Yeah,
and others.
Yeah, really. And to go back to that father-son dichotomy, just to sort of get a behind-the-scenes look, what has it been like for both of you pursuing creative projects as a father and son? Do you find it more, are there more positives, or are there some drawbacks to pursuing creative projects as a father and son duo?
I would say, no, it's interesting because we have different tastes, right? Over the years, there have been some projects that we worked on. The first thing that I did as a filmmaker was behind the scenes of Alexander, right? So I was on set, with him every day, recording him as a director, and ultimately working to get a final cut of a behind the scenes feature. Which back in the days of DVDs, people actually they bought DVDs and they had those behind the scenes. I thought it was it was a very important little documentary, and it's still on YouTube. Some people have got a chance to see it, and that's beautifully told story about my dad and how he operates as a director, but also what drew him to the story of Alexander and how personal it was to his own life. So I think there's certain stories that we can collaborate and say, this is of mutual interest. Certainly RFK is one of those stories that's, I think, of mutual interest. And then oftentimes there's just, different interests, and we pursue our own projects, but when there's alignment, we find it. But I don't think there's any, sometimes people assume, because I'm Oliver Stone's son, it's like he's supposed to be involved, but no, it's normal. I mean, there'll be certain things that we share and we want to tell together, and there'll be other things that we'll be pursuing separately. So this just happened to align.
No, in this matter, Sean was very much on his own. I was busy with some other stuff, and once he met Robert, he went off with our producer Rob Wilson, who did a great job, and the editor
Kurt
Matilla, who also did a great job. But they put this together, and I supervised to the best of my ability. But I'm glad. I'm so proud of the film. I really am, because it really has a legacy. Because think about it. There won't be anything that I did about Robert Kennedy, which is a shame, because I wanted to. And there won't be anything, for that matter, about the other four assassinated leaders of the 60s. It's a shame that we haven't been able to deal with our own history. In fact, it's one of the most bothersome things about this era is the falsity of the narrative that's been allowed to grow, and the reinforcement of that narrative by shallow people in the media who are easy to criticize and easy to point out and follow the government. The government has never been cooperative in this. There's a real problem here in our government, in what's going on. It's not a democracy, and so those people who are intelligent have figured it out, and we just have no say in what's going on. We can't even get answers to the questions about any of these remarkable events. The JFK Act of 1992, which got through because of our film, has been ignored. Thousands of documents are sitting there, and they still haven't been revealed. They've been hidden. Who knows what? They vanished. They vanished because it's just impossible to get them out. We've tried and tried and tried. Trump, in 2017, said, I want all these documents out, without exception, he said. The deep state is pretty deep, because it's just been impossible. And the archives, a lot of it went to the archives. A lot of it has been, they didn't even digitize it. It's in boxes lying around by the thousands of pages. And no one is bothered to go through them, because there's no enforcement agency that was able to follow up from the JFK, the arbitration board in 1998 when it ended, 1998 to now. So even Trump, as president, was not able to get anywhere. I mean, we're talking about thousands of documents, and we're talking about the CIA too, because the CIA was one of the main culprits here. We know that from what Judge Tunheim said he told us in the film we did that they never cooperated. They did everything not to cooperate. And in fact, one of their tricks was if you remember that the JFK Act was passed in '92, but the board didn't start working till '94. And in those 2 years, the CIA actually contributed quite a lot of paperwork to the archives, the National Archives, which has not cooperated. The archivist has not done her job. She's just completely, she's gone now, but the new head of the archives is Mario Rubio, which I don't expect to get any cooperation from him either. I've written him letters. Our team has written him letters. They're not serious. They're not serious. And that's what should haunt every citizen. It's just ugly, this whole thing. It's like the 9/11 story. It's like the COVID story. It's just the government by mandate. It doesn't respond to questions, even questions. You can't see any evidence.
Yeah, I love also at the beginning of this conversation, you guys listed a bunch of projects that both of you have been involved with when it comes to the Kennedys. And Oliver, you may have answered this, so I'll kind of pivot to Sean here. But why? What keeps bringing you both back to stories about the Kennedys?
It's not about the Kennedys. It's about the government.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of the point. In one sense, it's about trying to figure out how these conspiracies work, right? And I think if you watch the RFK Legacy, you'll get a sense. One of the biggest reasons I think that the RFK conspiracy is so knotted up, let's say, it's so enigmatic, because if you realize that the so-called assassin, the supposed assassin that's currently in prison for the rest of his life, Sirhan, if you realize that he was under hypnosis, and you realize that the United States government CIA officially had a mind control program, right? MK Ultra, which was known, and there were other that was just one of the projects. There were other sub projects, but that literally they had this MK Ultra program for over a decade, and actually probably closer to 2. And one of the major things that CIA Director Helms did when he was leaving was to make sure that they shredded almost all the evidence of these programs, right? So you realize this is official government program was mind control. And if Sirhan, as we believe, and many investigators will point out, he was under hypnosis, and it was any relationship to our CIA government mind control programs, right? Mm-hmm. What does this tell us about the nature of our reality? How much is mind control being used on us, even through media, which I think anyone that works in media understands the hypnotic power of media. So that's why I think one of the major keys of this RFK assassination is to really, really understand that hypnosis is a component of the assassin, and it's deeply connected to how our government operates.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to add something.
Please.
It's not just the MK Ultra; it's basic evidence. Robert Kennedy makes the point that he got it. He never wanted to read anything about it. He didn't want to get involved in it because he saw what JFK case had brought out. It brought out so much tension. And but Paul Schrade, who'd been shot there, one of his the closest friend, I think, one of the closest friends of Robert Sr., was shot in the face. He survived, and years later, he urged Robert to read the Noguchi autopsy. Thomas Noguchi was the Japanese autopsy expert who did Kennedy, as well as several other celebrities, Marilyn Monroe and so forth. Noguchi it's clear as day in the autopsy report that he shot from the rear, about very close range, like 4 inches or something. The gun that shot him was right behind him, whereas Sirhan is standing 6 feet from him in the front, and he never changes from that position. And there are bullet holes everywhere from his gun, but you don't hear anything about the bodyguard, the security guard that was newly appointed a few days before, and what has very suspicious links to the CIA, was appointed his bodyguard. I don't know how he got on the inside like that so quickly, but the whole thing was corrupt. The whole thing was corrupt. Thane Cesar was his name. He ended up, he basically was, it's so evident that he was the one. And he went off to the Philippines. Robert tried to follow up with him, and it's a great story. But in addition to that, you got to keep in mind that the LAPD, which investigated the case, was the worst criminal of all. They were deeply involved because their top guys had links to the CIA. The two Spanish detectives that were in charge of the case had worked with the CIA for several years because the CIA was very active in South America with its program, changing governments, regime change. And the LA police were very involved with this. It's a dirty, dirty story, and people don't even have a clue at how dirty it is.
Yet, to that point, something that I thought the documentary did so well, and we're kind of capturing it in this interview as well, is there's just so much. Right from the start of the documentary, I'm like, really? And then it was like, boom, boom, just another thing after another, after another, after another. And it's like, oh, do you still not believe us? Here's like 10 more. It was just over and over and over again, which is something that I think drew me in and just kept me watching. It was absolutely well done. Fantastic documentary work.
I just forgot to add, I'd like to add just one little note. Those LAPD was so bad, they didn't even take the gun from the security guard from Tain Cesar to examine it. I mean, what kind of investigation is that? They had their assassin before the assassination. They knew who it was, and it was they pinned it on Sirhan, who's still in jail, and he's clueless as to what happened. He's clueless. It's very interesting, as shows that use of mind control.
That's fascinating, and to the point of the documentary style and how masterful this really was, with one thing after another leading you on, like very, very well done. This story very much could have been a narrative film, but it's a documentary.
But they wouldn't make it. Hollywood wouldn't make it.
Exactly. So, Sean, maybe you can dive more into that.
What led
you to the documentary choice?
Yeah. Well, you were asking about the Bobby film from Emilio.
Emilio Estevez did a film years ago, and he got the ball. He was scared to go into this. He said so. He said, I couldn't go there because I saw what Stone got in, the trouble Stone got in. That's what he said. So, in other words, they cut the balls off of everything. It's the deadly influence of this chilling effect, of if this guy does that, then you don't go there. And anybody who does go there gets into trouble and gets branded for life by the CIA, the Pentagon, all these people. It's just disgusting what they call this a democracy, but it's not. You have to understand that we have no choice in what we're doing. People are just misled constantly by brainwashing and propaganda.
Yeah, no, to the point of why a documentary. I mean, I think there's truth to the fact that it's very difficult to do a conspiracy film, right, as a feature. Remember, the biggest difference in a documentary and a feature is the cost. A documentary can be done for $1 million or so. A feature, like this would cost maybe 10 million or plus. I mean, it would not be as easy to raise that and put that together with all the talent involved and the opinions. I mean, you raise more money, you get more gatekeepers. There's a lot more opinions. It raises the stakes. So
and there's distribution too.
Well, exactly. Well, in order to get that money, you have to have distribution. So again, there's a lot of factors that, in order to tell a story like this, there's a financial component, but there's also, I always look at documentary as you have access. If you have access to the real people, you don't need an actor, right? I have the actor. The actor is Robert Kennedy Jr. He's my actor. In this case, my father, he's the interviewer. He's an actor. And watching their dynamic, that's the drama, right? Seeing the faces of the speakers, of the interviewees, the chorus, that's the drama. And so I would say with documentary, it's like when you work with documentary, you work with your interviewees or your subjects. They are the actors. I don't need to cast someone to play Robert Kennedy Jr. I've got him. You see, and I think that's part of why I never even would have considered doing this as a feature. I said, we've got the real guy. Let's go interview him.
No, I love that, and I think now is a perfect time. If you're watching this interview and you have not seen the documentary yet, please go to angel.com/RFK Live. There you can join the Angel Guild, and then you can start streaming the film. Join over 1.5 million Guild members and gain access to this amazing, amazing documentary. So please scan that QR code, go to that URL, and also support the film in other ways. Please take the time to leave a review on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. Leave an honest review, because if you are being honest, you will leave a positive review. This was an absolutely phenomenal documentary. So please just take the time if you can. Also, I would love to ask a question looking forward. Of course, Robert Kennedy Jr. is currently in the administration, so there's a lot that is still happening when it comes to. We saw a bit of it at the end of the documentary, of course, with him being interviewed in front of Congress and everything else like that. Is there any idea or plan on possibly continuing the story, since I feel like there's going to be so much in the next coming years?
Well, I'm not sure the story is going to continue. I do hope it's the one concession, well, there's a couple of others that Trump made to the liberal, so-called progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Robert Kennedy represents that for me. I was going to vote for him for president. When he chose not to be president, he said, "Don't throw away your vote on me. Vote for Trump." I didn't vote for Trump. I'm a California resident, so I voted for him. But California doesn't matter, because it's at the end of a long night where electorally it makes no difference. When the battles are always between the mid states, and it's so rigged, it's so manipulated in a way. I can see how elections are stolen. It's not that hard to imagine this in this mess of a time we're in. But Robert's done a great job. He's the only one in that administration. MAHA stands for Make America Healthy Again, not great, just healthy. That's a big deal, difference. And to maintain that is very important. And he's done that as best he can as health secretary. He's had tremendous editorial opposition from all the liberals, which is a shame on them to me, because I was proud to be a Democrat, but no longer. And I can understand why Robert's coming from. It's just changed. Everything has changed. The Democrats have been the war party as much as the Republicans. So it's a bipartisan agreement. The country goes on and goes to war after war. Kennedy has made a move. Yeah, he has never been anti-vax. That's another lie about him. He said simply, and he said it to me years ago, I want to have vaccines thoroughly tested, because we know several people whose children did develop autism because of vaccines. And I know where it's coming from. There's too many mistakes. There's too many records of destruction from the COVID virus, leading to myocarditis and various ills and diseases. Just too much. And we're not paying attention to the state of American kids. On this matter, I think most mothers would agree. It really needs attention. And he's trying very hard to get it. And you get all these so-called progressive Democrats attacking him. I find that to be a shame, a disgrace.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders leading the charge.
Bernie Sanders leading the charge. Elizabeth Warren.
So I think that, to your question, is there room? Yeah, maybe there will be a follow-up, a sequel one day. I mean, give it some time. Let's see what he can achieve. It's still just beginning. Who knows in 5-10 years where we are if they are successful, but which, God willing, we have a healthier society as a result. Maybe there will be a documentary about that, right?
I gather that the TV ads there's going to be a change in TV ads for pharmaceutical ads.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, but that would be amazing, because that's every time you turn on, I don't watch much TV, right? But occasionally you get those ads, and it's always half of them are for,
Well, I saw one the other
COVID
night. I saw one the other night that was very new, and it was a minute long or something like that. So they don't like to pay more to make they had to list all the defects, potential defects of the medicine. Yeah. And they did go on a bit. So that was good news. If we can get honest advertising out there, which is almost impossible in America. But you have to fight for standards. That's what the Kennedy family stood for, and that's what this guy is really fighting for. He's the real thing, and we can't. The irony is we don't recognize it.
Yeah. No, I think the one thing you can point to in the documentary at that moment where you realize, the reason he took on the vaccine industry wasn't to say like this was a payday for him. It actually destroyed a lot of his relationships. He was close to people like the Clintons and many other, high-level Democrats.
Everybody.
And he really risked all the relationships. He risked donors. He risked so much money because he said, there were mothers and real, human beings coming to him saying that their children had been damaged. And when he started looking into it and he saw the evidence, he said that it was more important to stand by them and to be a voice for them than to have the life that he basically had previously. And I think you'll get a sense of that in the documentary.
And what I like about him also is that I can't help but be somewhat bitter and angry at some of these Democrats because I feel that they betrayed. But if you notice, Robert has never personalized his argument. He's very generous. He doesn't talk about what they say. He talks about what he's trying to do, which I find very positive. He certainly has the presidential perquisites. His character is above all. His character is what impresses me the most. And I know that because I've had personal interactions with him.
Yeah, I love that you said that because one of the through lines of the documentary that I found absolutely fascinating was both Robert Kennedy Sr. and Robert Kennedy Jr. seemed to have an extremely strong moral backbone. They were able to navigate their own party even and be like, okay, no, this evidence is leading this way, therefore I'm going to stand for this. And that's something that I thought was fascinating and super filling as well. It was really cool to watch. But the question is, do you think that is a rare quality to find in a person, an actual moral backbone? And if it is a rare quality to find in people, why do you think that is?
You can answer that.
Come on, you're the psychologist.
No. The moral backbone. Look, I think it's pretty clear, as they say, money is the root of all evil. It's not that it's the root. It's the root of all evil, and it's the potential for a lot of good as well. But there is a root of all evil in money, right? And so if you think about it, where is there a lot of concentration of wealth and power? It's around politics. Right, because they're writing legislation that affects huge businesses, conglomerates, right? I mean, these industries are massive. You're talking about international conglomerates and whatnot. That look at the COVID shots alone. How much did they make? Hundreds of billions of dollars in profits, right? That was pretty much a forced vaccination. It was, that's hundreds of billions of dollars in profits to a few companies, and so. Then what do? They're going to buy influence, and this is not just the COVID shot. I mean, we've seen it consistently throughout history in terms of the relationship of money and politics, right?
And it ties to Europe too. It's not just the United States.
No, but we're talking just politics, the moral character.
The vaccine, the Moderna and the Pfizer was sold to Europe.
Yeah,
a lot of money was made in Europe from this, which it follows everything we do with the EU, with the NATO, with the war in the Ukraine. I mean, there are links on everything.
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, the money flowing into, obviously, the war in Ukraine, but I was simply saying that the amount of money influencing politics, as we know, is clear. And so when it comes to politics, most politicians, I would suggest, don't have a backbone, right? Because how are you going to survive in politics unless you're a Cynthia McKinney, right? Who I like. She was in there, Democrat, for one or two terms. They ousted her really pretty quickly because she wasn't going with the party line. She's the rare story. Most of the Democrat or Republicans last for decades. Sometimes 50 years in politics, right? If you're a Biden or whatnot, I don't know, Pelosi's 40 plus years. How do you maintain that? You have to obviously play the game. And so if you're going to play, it's very rare if you're going to have a strong moral compass and say, I'm not going to play the game on this. I have to stand by my morality. It's rare. It's the exception. As I said, it's the ones that usually don't last very long, or they get targeted by, you name it, by some kind of lobbying group or an AIPAC or, any number of lobbying groups, right? They get ousted from Congress. or the Senate. So that's why I would suggest, it's rare to see people with moral character getting into politics, because it's too clear the money is going to drive you out, right? The money that it takes to get into there in the first place. These campaigns cost money, right? They cost tens.
What sane person would
dollars.
run? Yeah, look at what's his name, Musk, the richest man in the world. Yeah. He got scared off.
Well, because again, I mean, it's as we know, like the corporate influence that can drive people in different directions. It can't. Yeah. Anyway, without getting into too much of the modern issue, I would suggest that's what we're facing.
Well, Sean is cursed, you see, because he followed in somewhat my footsteps, and I think he can't go back now after what he said. No corporation would hire him. No corporation will cooperate with him. This is a problem, and he'll see. It's a life choice, like to become a priest.
Well, that's something that I very much appreciated about this documentary. Is I feel like you both, as well as this project, this film, is contributing to a positive side of the conversation. It's open, it's honest, it just lays it out for everyone and says, hey, what do you think? And I think people watching it will come away with their minds opened as well as enlightened. And I think it'll just improve the conversation so much more. Because something that was interesting is the documentary goes over some controversial issues, if you can even say that. Things like environmental issues, vaccines, COVID, someone being affiliated with the left or the right. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention, like, we are seeing a time in America to where even political violence is something that's seemingly on the table. And I just am curious both of your reaction to this and how you hope this documentary will contribute positively to the conversation.
Obvious. I don't know. We've been talking about it for the last 30 minutes. But I hope I do. I want to thank Angel, because they have played. They were a Christian. They started as a Christian distribution organization with religious films, but they've expanded, and I think in the best sense of Christian religion, they have opened a lot of minds by making documentaries like this, you see. And I think you should be applauded to Angel, which no normal corporate distributor would pick up.
Yeah.
So here we are. What a mess.
Yeah. No, I think I've been a fan of Angel since Sound of Freedom was released, because I knew a bit of some of the people on that film, and they were having a hard time getting Sound of Freedom distributed in Hollywood, even though it's it's a good film. It's about human trafficking, right? I mean, it's very simple things that I think we can all agree upon, and the fact that they couldn't get distribution through mainstream Hollywood channels, thank goodness Angel stepped in, put it out there, and since then obviously has grown tremendously to, as my dad said, to make or to help create and distribute documentaries like this. And I think that just shows that there is a moral compass, right? To say there's nothing. This documentary, I think, is at the core about two people that are great role models, great exemplars in American politics. Now, yes, I mean, you can say neither one is a saint. JFK, RFK, his son, they've all had their issues when it comes to, personal life, women. I mean, you name it, right? There's all these things that are part of a man's story, right? And there's a lot of famous people and great men that have had similar issues. Mm-hmm. But if you look at them as leaders, right, as exemplars of leadership, of the compassion, of trying to stand for the little people, right, which is really what the American Democratic Republic was about, right? The idea of, everyone having a voice, and these guys, even though they were insiders, trying to, to really not just be there for the corporate interest, but really to be there for the everyday, even at the time, the blacks and the Latinos and the Native Americans and the underclass in America. The fact that they were standing with these people, I think that's remarkable, and you'll see pieces of that throughout the story. And I think that people will be inspired politically, and maybe by this film. Maybe some kid out there is going to watch this movie and say, hey, I want to be a senator or a congressman or a president one day, like JFK, like RFK. even like RFK Jr. Just in that model of someone who says, "I'm here as with the moral compass, not answering to the corporate, Zions or whatnot, Scions, but answering to my own, moral
Isn't
compass."
that what Charlie Kirk tried to do?
Yeah, there you go. So hopefully more will rise, I believe, with one tree falling, dozens, hundreds of seeds are spread and grow.
No, I definitely agree with that. In watching the documentary, I think it definitely will add to the positive side of the conversation, like you were saying. To close our conversation, I would love to jump into some audience questions. So if you're watching right now and have a question for Miss Oliver and Sean Stone, please put it in the comments below. We'll just rapid fire get through these questions. We have one right now that came in from the Angel Guild, and it just says, what was the hardest part of making RFK Legacy?
The hardest part, probably raising the money. I mean, I think that's the hardest part of most movies. I think is raising the money, getting people to believe in you. We started off.
You had a contributor in a woman.
Dr. Joy Kong stepped in. Thankfully, she's an executive producer. She's credited. She's actually a stem cell doctor, a longevity doctor, and she believed in us, and I think believed in RFK Jr. and a few others. That Angel as well stepped in, and the fact is, we got the Angel Guild to agree that this is a good film, and we passed the Angel Guild, which is no small task. Actually, that was probably the most stressful moment, was going through that process, right? That you have to kind of test screen it, and in this case, we had to pass Angel's Guild to get distribution. So I would say that was probably the most nerve-wracking part.
Really. Also, we have another question here from Dennis. He says, Sean, what other interests will you pursue? Do you prefer directing, acting?
I love storytelling. I honestly feel that if it's a team process, right? So I love writing, but when you're writing, there has to be a reality to it. If you're just writing for yourself, that's one thing. But if you write and you actually feel like you can get something made, then there's a collaborative aspect to that. Acting when it's the right role, directing when it's the right project. I really, I'm of that mindset that it has to be the right thing. And, in football, I was an offensive lineman. So I didn't mind being, just part of that group of people, because it makes a team to make a film, whether it's TV series, documentary, movie, it's always a team effort. So even if it's just helping a project get made as a producer or bringing money, however I can help, I really believe in storytelling as a medium that's necessary, and even more and more necessary in this time when we have so much conflict in our world without seeing the other side. We need stories more than ever. We need controversial stories more than ever. We need stories that can get past the noise to actually touch people's hearts and say, oh, I see now from a different perspective, maybe.
No, I love that. And Lynn asked a question here. She says, can I access the interview after it's finished? I want to share it. Thank you for your courage. Just to answer that question very quickly, Lynn, yes, you will be able to share this interview. But even more importantly, if you are a Guild member, which I believe you are, you can share RFK Legacy to non-Guild members if you'd like. So go ahead and join the Guild, angel.com/RFK Live. Join there, download the Angel app to your smart TV, your phone, watch the documentary, and share it. That's one way you can support the film. Sean, is there anything specific how can people share this and get the word out about this documentary?
Social media.
Yeah, no, it's huge. It's huge.
I think the word of mouth, as we know, is always the most important thing when it comes to storytelling, because there's so many channels now. My gosh, you go, what do I watch? Hulu, Angel, Amazon, Netflix, right? There's countless. So I think really if people tell me this is a good movie or a good documentary, it piques my interest.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Just to close out the stream, I would love to open up the microphone. I think we're good with questions, but I'd just love to open up the microphone to you both. Any final closing remarks to the Angel audience?
I've said everything I have to say.
Perfect answer.
Did anything come of this testimony that you gave recently for Congress about the JFK files?
Not really. No, we've been blocked again. Nothing's happened. There's a new book out I would like to suggest. It's called, by the same man who wrote JFK and the Unspeakable, which was a great book. It's the best book on Kennedy. He's an ex-Jesuit, I think, and he's a layman, but he writes beautifully well. And this is a new one he just finished, and it's called Martyrs to the Unspeakable, the assassinations of JFK, Malcolm, Martin, and RFK. And very, very incisive information in this book. Please pay attention to it. It's coming out very shortly from Orvis, I think it is.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
And Sean, any final words?
I mean, we've covered so much, and I think the next words are going to come from the documentary. It's a very emotional experience. I think you might learn some things, but I think what will surprise you is the emotional quality and caliber of the characters. You really, I think, will feel RFK and his son in this story, and that's something that you can't convey with words.
Well, thank you both so much for taking the time. Sean and Oliver Stone, it's been a treat. It's been a pleasure. And more importantly, of course, this documentary is just such a gift, not just to the Angel Guild, but to the world. So thank you so much for that. We're also going to close with a clip from RFK Legacy, so enjoy that. And of course, if you want more than just the clip, which I'm sure you will, go to angel.com/RFK Live, join the Guild, watch it there. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Micah.
Thank you.
All the forces he felt had killed JFK could not allow Bobby Kennedy to become president because he was going to be coming after them then with the full power of the federal government.
This meant that Kennedy had to go.
Senator Kennedy is going down now to address his supporters, as McCarthy did a short while ago. Rafer Johnson, the Olympic decathlon winner, is on one side of him there. He's been acting as a bodyguard. Now he's advancing towards the ballroom where he will talk to his campaign workers from California. Here he is now. He's entering the ballroom, and you can hear the cheers from the supporters.
So Bobby Kennedy, I'm sad to say, his days are numbered from the moment he announces for president. In fact, Jackie Kennedy told him this. Jackie Kennedy told him she was crushed by his decision, and she said, "Bobby, the same people who killed Jack are going to kill you."
Kennedy has been shot. They think Kennedy has been shot. Appear to be gunshot.
Now streaming exclusively on Angel.